Hey guys, I want to welcome you to the weekly Wednesday for the Financial Freedom newsletter, where every week, every Wednesday, we delve into something inspirational, motivational, something excerpt taken from the Financial Freedom weekly newsletter. Wherever you are, if you're listening on Spotify, on iTunes, Google, be sure to click the like, subscribe, share, comment. And without ado, let's get into the show. Welcome everybody to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, I talk about 4 pillars of freedom: financial, time, location, and health freedom. And in that light and regard, I'm always looking for the newest ideas, the newest innovations, people, thought leaders on the cutting edge. So today we have a special guest. He's Joey Mure, and he's the co-founder and partner at Wealth Without Wall Street. And he does a lot of speaking and educating and talking about passive income, cash flow, financial independence, early retirement. And so today we're going to all talk about, your income is not your job, how to break free from your job. Not necessarily you don't have, but you have that option. So without much ado, Joey, welcome.
Oh, Chris, great to be with you. And I love the fact that the name of your podcast, first of all, Financial Freedom for Physicians. Man, physicians, they need help, right? Which is so weird because usually like the rest of the world is looking at physicians and saying, man, you have it so well, like you get paid so well. And I wish I was a physician. And yet I know the internal sometimes, if you're listening to this podcast, is something just didn't work out the way that you thought, right? Like it's a lot more demanding on you, yourself, your family, your time, and even in some cases, your own health suffers as a result of the schedule that you keep as a physician. So, man, I love the fact that you share these nuggets with this community. So thanks for having me.
And, what's interesting is tell us more like your background, how you came about and what you're doing now, especially Wealth Without Wall Street. That's really interesting.
Well, hey, nowadays, like people are loving me because they're like, well, like Wall Street is failing us miserably right now. How can we get wealth without Wall Street? So first of all, I was in the mortgage business right out of college and started working in that industry for 11 years. During that time, I kind of rose the corporate ranks and was making well over $300,000 in my 20s. And I thought, man, this is what financial success is, like a high income. And as you know, from listening to this, a high income doesn't equal financial success. It just equals that I get nicer things, or I can go on better vacations than the next guy, or whatever it may be. But I found myself kind of like stuck on a hamster wheel where if I wasn't producing, then I wasn't continuing that lifestyle. And it kind of became clear to me. I was at the beach with my wife, and I have 5 daughters, Chris. So if you can imagine, just these sweet little girls, and they're all kind of growing up. We're at the beach, and I said, "Hey, you girls go down to the beach. I'll be down there. I just had to take this one more phone call." And what inevitably happened? 2 hours later, I'm walking down to the beach. I'm supposed to be on vacation. And there comes my family walking back up the boardwalk right past me. And they're just scowling like, I can't believe you've just wasted our time together because you're working. You're supposed to be on vacation. And those are those little tidbits, those times that I remember thinking, this is not freedom, right? And so anyway, something shifted. I was introduced to a new concept after reading a book in 2009. I started working with my now business partner, and it totally shifted the way that my mind works, right? No longer is the financial freedom formula to create more income. Is to create more passive income than my monthly expenses. then and only then do I get to dictate what to do with my time and who I spend it with. And that kind of sent me on this trajectory. Over 4 more years, I still was in the mortgage business. Then I broke free of that and started educating others on my process. And that's where Wealth Without Wall Street got started.
Yeah, it's a very inspiring story. And, I actually just had to if it's personal time, I just had to draw boundaries, just turn off the phone and not be around and accept the consequences. So, and it's really interesting, how you came about this idea, your time, but you have all these constraints, and then it's like you're almost trading your time for all these things. And then at the end of it, you don't have any time left. So, what's interesting is you're an expert and you have these different topics that you talk about. And the first is, what is investor DNA and why you should only invest when following yours?
Well, it's a great point. First of all, I don't even think most people know that there is such a thing, right? An investor DNA is how are you uniquely created as an investor, right? How do you see the world? Your perspective, your experiences lead into your investor DNA. It's a very personality-driven kind of assessment that we created several years ago. And you've heard of like the DISC assessment?
Yes, yeah.
So it's largely based off the DISC assessment, but it's the first one that I know of that actually then couples it with, well, these passive income sources that we've all done, like my business partner and I have done all of the ones that you see listed. And we now have over 50,000 a month that we've created from implementing these. We partner your personality type with these passive income matrix that we call it. And you start to see, what do I really like about short-term rentals? Or what would I like about short-term rentals? Or what would I not so much like? And what kind of resources would I need to have in order to be successful in short-term rentals? The same would be true with land flipping or syndications and turnkey rental properties. Like maybe you've heard of the different strategies, but you always wonder, like, would I be good at that? Like, is that something that I would really benefit from? That to me is a foundational part. And maybe, I don't know, in your experience, Chris, like, did you ever invest in something that just ended up being a flop because you look back and you're like, I never should have invested in that because fill in the blank? Have you ever had that experience?
Oh yeah. Many times,
But that's where the investor DNA really comes in handy and it's something that we learned because of the failures that we made along the way, right? We invested in things that were just based off of, we don't know anything about this and we're still putting money into it. Like, that's dumb. Like, why would we do that? We have to be educated. And then if it's not, like, I'll give you an example. My business partner bought a long-term rental as a condo. He is all about influence and like being a part of and being an advisor to something. He loves businesses and stuff like that. Well, he bought this single family condo and he started he had a rental company. And so it was just running. He was making a couple $100 a month. And he thought, this is the worst. I hate this because he can't have any influence on it. It just either works or it doesn't. And so he went years without investing in other things because he just kind of assumed that that's what it was like. And so that's what I'm saying, like, the investor DNA, if you invest according to it, you can go far fast. But if you don't, if you invest in something that's outside of your investor DNA, chances are it's going to slow you down or stall you. Or worst case, you even lose money because now you were doing something you shouldn't have to begin with. Does that make sense?
It's like based on your strengths and your talents and knowing who you are and your investor profile and what the particular investment is. So once you know that, some people, they hate the stock market because it's just so volatile and they can't handle that. They're watching the ticker. And some people love real estate, and then some people just hate being called about like tenants, toilets, and trash. So really depends on what your profile is.
Exactly.
Yeah. The other thing is Yeah. Also, what's interesting is you have this. I'm always interested in new concepts. So you have debt freedom does not equal financial freedom. I think that's like really, expand upon that.
Well, I will tell you this. I think there's a lot of financial gurus out there that talk about debt freedom, and I won't name their names, but it's like a distraction. Because let me just say at the baseline, and maybe you're a physician and you've paid off all your debt. Do you actually have any more freedom than you did before the debt was paid off? The answer is no, because you still have to show up the next day to pay for the cost of living, right? There's still an extreme cost of living that, by the way, in 2022 has gone up 9-10% because of the inflationary environment that we live in. Am I right? Like those things, that doesn't go away because you now don't owe your student loan debt. Now, if I could create more passive income than my monthly expenses, which includes some debt payments, am I truly free? Absolutely. Because then I could say, you know what? I'm not going to the practice tomorrow. I'm going on vacation for the next month. One of the guys in our mastermind is a dentist, and our passive income mastermind, and he said, he took his family to Roatan for 6 weeks. I think it's somewhere down near Honduras. I may be wrong on the location. By the way, I'm not a geography guy. But he took his whole family down there for 6 weeks because he had created enough passive income and he had associates running his practice that he was able to do that. But if his debt was paid off, he still would not have been able to do that if he didn't have all those other things put in place. And so my thought is, man, what if we could be more efficient? What if instead of putting extra money every single month towards something we're paying that's like 2% interest, right? I mean, how many people have mortgages that they got in the last several years that are 3%, 4%, 2%, whatever the case may be? And if they're paying extra money towards that, what are they missing out on, right? I mean, Chris, you created passive income. Are there deals out there where you can make 10, 12, 15, 20% returns? So if I was putting dollars towards something that was 3% and I could have been earning 15%, I'm actually going backwards 12%, right? It's just the math. Like, let's be real about it. So debt freedom is a scam. Let's start making passive income and creating financial freedom that way.
Interesting. That's a really, people say, pay off your house and, which I think, it does has its merits. And then talking about, student loan debt. And so that's quite interesting, and which brings us to the point, it's because most of the time, for example, you pay off your house, you have all this equity and it's just sitting there for 20, 30, 25 years and it's just doing nothing. And then, you could be using that. So talk about 401ks are the worst vehicles for financial freedom.
Well, I mean, I don't mean to be so polarizing, but actually I do, because here's the thing. When you get really clear on what your goal is, so let's say that, you're in your 30s. In fact, did I read that you were totally financially free by 37? Is that right?
38.
38. Okay. So my bad. I was trying to read up on you ahead of time. But by 38. So if you had in your late 20s decided, I want to be financially free by the time I'm 40. I don't know if you set that goal or not, but you accomplished it. So I assume you had some sort of goal. And you were every single month siphoning off part of your income into a 401. Would you not then say, wait a minute, I no longer can access those funds until I'm 59 and a half? Does it even matter what the rate of return is? At that point, I have literally told myself being financially free by 40 is the goal. And I'm putting money in something that will not allow me to access it till I'm 60. Those things don't jive, right? They don't make sense. And so many people, and I'm going to share this with you from one of the people in our community is an orthopedic surgeon. And he told me, he said he was up on top of a mountain skiing with his kids. He has 3 little girls. And he said he had a heart attack. And he thought he was in good shape, all this stuff. Well, his life got rocked then. And he started looking at things and he's like, wait a minute, I'm just an overpaid employee right now. That's all I am. And I want more freedom. I want to live with my daughters. I want to invest in them and in the world. And I can't do it because I don't have any passive income. And he started looking around. He said, wait a minute, I've got all this money in qualified plans, retirement savings, 401ks, 529 plans for the daughters, college savings, all these things that we've been told is for our benefit. And he said, you know what, Joey? He said, it's all locked up. I can't access it. I could be financially free so much faster if I could access those dollars. In fact, that to me is the number one issue plaguing everybody as it relates to financial freedom, but especially physicians, is lack of access to cash. And it seems silly for me to say that for physicians that make so much money, but what we've been told is all these things we put money into, we can't access anymore. And it restricts our ability to become financially free. So that's why I would say, man, it's not because the rates of return are bad. It's not because there's volatility in the market. It's not because of the tax deferrals, which is a joke. Do not get me started on talking about tax deferment. It's more about it just doesn't give you the time that you want because it requires you not to access it till you're 60.
And it's interesting because I've been thinking recently, all these rules about, withdrawals and all these fees. And, at a core level, it's like if the institutions allowed anybody to withdraw at any time, then, the whole system would come collapsing. So they have to keep you there and, the funds and then they get first access to it because then you have to wait until you're 60, 65, so it's just, I think the whole financial system is, sometimes it's rigged, but, that's another.
Totally rigged. You're exactly right. By the way, Wall Street, and I can beat up on them because our company's name is Wealth Without Wall Street, right? It's totally rigged, but it's like the best marketing you've ever heard of in your life. Like they convince us to literally pay them every 2 weeks out of a paycheck that we don't even see it before it hits their bank account. Mm-hmm. They take no risk with our money. It's our risk with our money, but they take it and then they lock it up and they say you cannot get access to it until you're 59 and a half. This is an amazing system, but it is the worst for us. And we think that we're doing something beneficial. They've convinced us that this is to our benefit. It is just mind-boggling. If we could come up with a business model like this, we would be genius. Wall Street has done it, and it's time to break free of it, though. Like this is a game that you cannot win, and quote unquote retirement is a joke. It's a lie, and you've got to figure out what you really want to do with your life and build passive income that supports that lifestyle. Not thinking like one day I'll be free of this job and I can start, sailing off in the sunset. Like that is a lie. Do not keep buying that.
Yeah, it's been an interesting conversation. And I know you talk about more advanced strategies, especially in particular with, passive income. And a lot of audience and listeners out there, they're high income professionals. They would like to talk to you, visit your website, contact you. How can they do that?
I'll say this, the first thing that we would always recommend is that people just reach out for a free call. We have coaches that walk you through like a 15-minute okay, where do you stand right now? What are you trying to accomplish? And can we then help you? Because obviously we can't help everybody, but I just say go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/free call. And that way you can start to determine what is your right next thing? Like, what is the next step for you that will help you get to where you need to go? And how can we support you in that process?
Yeah. And for all the listeners out there, Joey's ideas are they're very innovative, and where the whole masses are still, under this asleep. And, under traditional thinking, but the way you think about money, how it's created, what it means in terms of your time, taxes, debt, all these things, people are slowly awakening. So all his resources will be in the links and show notes. And thanks so much for coming on. And it's been a fascinating discussion.
Chris, thanks for what you do, man. I hope that we continue to wake up people all across the world and that they get freedom as you do.
Thank you. I hope you really enjoyed that wonderful, inspirational, motivational piece. Again, wherever you are listening, if you liked it, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. We're on everywhere: Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon, Audible. And without much ado, be sure to thank this show's sponsors, and we'll see you next week.